There is no alarm, no phone buzzing on a nightstand, no calendar full of meetings, no traffic building on a highway somewhere below your window. There is only darkness and warmth, and the faint orange glow of embers that have been watched all night by someone who loves you enough to stay awake. You are lying on a bed of dried grasses and soft animal skins, inside a rock shelter that has kept your people safe for longer than anyone can remember. The stone curves above you like a cupped hand. The air smells of wood smoke and earth and the faint mineral tang of the rock itself. Somewhere nearby, a child murmurs in their sleep. Somewhere further, an owl calls once and then falls silent. Your breathing is slow and even, matched to the rhythm of this place. This is 40,000 years ago. You are an anatomically modern human being, as intelligent and emotionally complex as anyone alive today. And everything you think you know about your life here is almost completely wrong. You are not starving. You are not terrified. You are not spending every waking moment fighting for survival against a world that wants you dead. The evidence, from archaeology, from the study of modern peoples who still live this way, from the bones and tools and art left behind, tells a very different story. Your people work perhaps 4 to 6 hours on a typical day. The rest is yours. Rest, conversation, music, craft, play, and long stretches of quiet that would make a modern person restless, but that feel to you like the most natural thing in the world. That is what we are doing tonight on The Sleepy Historian, spending an entire day in that world. Not rushing through it, not summarizing it from the outside, living it, hour by hour, from the first embers of morning to the last quiet sounds of the night. This is a place designed for falling asleep. The day will carry you as far as you want to go, and wherever you stop listening is exactly where you were meant to stop tonight. This is the oldest day, a day lived 10,000 times over across the millennia, a day so ordinary that no one will ever record it, and yet so deeply embedded in your body that 40,000 years from now, your descendants will still feel it in their bones. In the way sleep comes easier by firelight, in the way silence feels like company when you are not alone, in the way a long walk through open country can quiet a mind that nothing else will reach. And it begins the way every day begins, in the dark, with embers, with the slow, unhurried transition from sleep into waking that your body was built for. The fire has not gone out. It never goes out. Someone has been watching it through the night in shifts, feeding it small sticks when the flames drop too low, keeping it alive the way you keep a heartbeat alive, not by thinking about it, but by never quite forgetting it. Fire is the most important technology your people possess, more important than any spear or any stone blade. It cooks your food, warms your nights, holds predators at the edge of the dark, and gathers your people into a circle that is the oldest architecture in the world. This morning, it is your cousin who sits beside the fire, gray-eyed and quiet, feeding it back to life as the first pale light touches the entrance of the shelter. He nods to you. You nod back. There is no rush. He has been awake for a few hours, taking the last watch, and his eyes have that settled quality that comes from sitting with fire through the small hours of the night. The warmth of the fire reaches your face, your hands, the front of your body, and something in your chest loosens, the way it does when you are warm and safe and do not need to be anywhere else. Later, he will sleep through the warmest part of the afternoon, and no one will think anything of it. Sleep here is not a single block carved into the calendar. It is fluid, taken when the body asks for it, in stretches that follow no clock except the one that lives behind your eyes. The children wake first, They always do. Two of them are already chasing each other along the ledge outside the shelter, bare feet on cool stone, their laughter carrying further than they realize in the still morning air. A third, smaller child is sitting on the ground near the entrance, turning a smooth pebble over and over in her hands, studying it with the total concentration that children give to things adults have stopped seeing. The adults are slower. Your mother stretches, pushes back the hide she slept under, and sits for a long moment staring at the fire before she stands. An old man near the back wall coughs, rolls over, and coughs again. Someone else yawns, long and unashamed, and the yawn travels through the camp the way yawns do, from body to body, a small wave of shared biology. The shelter comes alive the way a body comes alive, not all at once but in pieces, each part waking in its own time. Outside, the sky is turning from deep grey to pale gold along the eastern ridge, and the valley below is filling with soft white mist that will burn away before the sun clears the trees. The air is cool and clean and carries that particular smell that mornings have in places where no engine has ever run: earth, dew, cold stone, and the green breath of growing things. A thrush begins to sing from somewhere in the birch grove below the shelter, and then another answers, and then a third, until the whole tree line is alive with thin, bright sound that rises and falls like water over pebbles. There is no concept of being late. There is no time to be late for. The day will unfold according to the light and the weather and the needs of the group and whatever the land offers. No one feels the particular modern anxiety of waking up and already being behind. Here, the morning belongs to the morning, and it will take as long as it takes. Your body knows this. Your breathing has deepened without you choosing it, and your shoulders have dropped a fraction lower. One of the older men steps outside and stands at the edge of the shelter, reading the morning. He scans the valley below, the tree line, the sky. He notes the direction of the wind by the way it moves through the grass. He watches the birds, because birds know things. A flock lifting suddenly from a stand of trees might mean a predator moving through. Hawks circling low might mean small game. Silence where there should be birdsong might mean a larger animal, or a storm coming from beyond the ridge. He comes back in and crouches near the fire, warming his hands, and speaks quietly with two others. They discuss what they have seen. He thinks the wind will shift by midday. One of the women has noticed a change in the bird patterns near the southern ridge and wonders if the antelope herd has moved. Another man mentions that the stream crossing they used yesterday felt lower than usual, which means the rain from last week is draining away and the fishing will be poor for a while. There is no leader giving orders. There is conversation and shared knowledge and a plan that emerges the way a path emerges through tall grass, by the weight of many feet, not by a single decree. Today, a group will go gathering toward the south, where the hazelnut trees are heavy this time of year. A smaller group has been tracking a herd of antelope for 2 days and believes today might bring them close enough. The rest will stay and work. Hides need scraping, tools need mending. A child has been learning to shape stone and wants to practice. Everyone knows what to do, not because they were told, but because they have watched and listened and participated since they were old enough to walk. This is how knowledge moves in a group of 30 people who have known one another their entire lives. Not through instruction manuals or classrooms, but through proximity, through presence, through 1,000 small observations made over 1,000 ordinary days. Your people are bound to one another in ways that go beyond affection, though there is plenty of that. You depend on each other for survival, for warmth, for information, for the kind of safety that only comes from knowing that someone is always watching out for you. Humans evolved to need community the way they evolved to need water. It is not a preference, it is a biological fact. And in a group this size, where every face is known and every voice familiar, that need is met so completely that it barely registers as a need at all. It simply feels like being alive. With the fire rebuilt and the day agreed upon, your attention turns to what has been waiting since last night. There are no meal times here, no breakfast hour, no lunch bell, no dinner reservation. You eat when you are hungry and when there is food, and the two don't always align. But this morning is generous. Last night's hunt, 3 days ago now, left a good supply of red deer meat, and what remains has been wrapped in hide and stored in the coolest part of the shelter, where the rock stays cold even in summer. You tear a strip of the smoked meat with your teeth. It is dense and rich and faintly sweet from the smoke, with that particular chewiness that comes from slow drying over low flames. You eat sitting down, cross-legged near the fire, letting the warmth soak into your knees and shins. There is something deeply satisfying about eating food that was hunted and prepared by people you know in a place you know. With fire, you have tended yourself. The meal is not a break from the day. It is part of the day, woven into it the way the fire is woven into it, essential and unremarkable and good. A child appears at your elbow and you hand her a piece without thinking, the way you hand a child food every time a child is near, because that is what everyone does. Children are never far from food in this camp. They drift between adults like small satellites, picking up a handful of berries here, a scrap of meat there, and no one tracks whose child ate what from whom. They all belong to everyone. When food is scarce, which happens sometimes in the lean weeks before spring, the adults eat less before the children eat less. This is not discussed, it is simply done. Your aunt is cracking hazelnuts between her back molars with a practiced twist that she learned from her mother and her mother learned from hers. The technique is specific. A certain angle, a certain pressure, a quick lateral motion of the jaw. She spits the shell fragments into the fire where they hiss and pop, and hands the oily nut meat to the toddler on her lap. The hazelnuts came from a grove 3 miles north that your people have been visiting every autumn since before you were born. Beside the fire, someone is pulling cattail roots from the ashes. They were placed there last night, nestled into the coals to roast slowly while the camp slept. Raw, these roots are fibrous and slightly toxic, full of compounds that the human gut cannot break down. But cooked, transformed by hours of slow heat, they become starchy and sweet, almost like a dense bread that falls apart in your fingers. You blow on one to cool it and eat it in small bites, the warmth of it spreading through your chest. This is what cooking did for your ancestors. It did not merely make food taste better. It doubled and tripled the number of plants that were safe to eat, unlocking calories that raw digestion could never reach. Roots that would pass through you undigested became fuel. Seeds that would crack your teeth became porridge. Tough, fibrous stems that no amount of chewing could break down became soft and yielding after a night in the coals. Cooking was not a convenience, it was a revolution. And it happened so long ago that your body has evolved to depend on it. Your teeth are smaller than your ancestors' teeth, your gut is shorter, you are, in a very real sense, a creature built for cooked food. The fire shifts and settles as you eat, sending a small column of sparks upward into the brightening air. Someone adds a log, and the smell of fresh wood smoke mixes with the richer, deeper smell of the coals beneath. The warmth on your face and hands is steady and familiar. And the act of eating here, slowly, in this company, without hurry or distraction, has a quality that is hard to name, but easy to feel. It is not just nourishment, it is presence. You are aware of the food, and the fire, and the people around you, and the morning opening up beyond the shelter, and you are in no rush to be anywhere other than exactly where you are. Your jaw is loose, your hands move slowly. Each breath draws in the warmth of the fire and the scent of the morning, and you let it fill you without thinking about it. There are dried blackberries too, gathered in late summer and stored in leather pouches. Their sweetness concentrated by months of slow drying. And wild onions pulled from the riverbank yesterday, their sharp smell softening in the fire's heat. The variety is remarkable. Archaeological evidence from ancient teeth and preserved waste tells us that people in this era knew 200 to 300 plant species by sight, taste, smell, and season. They knew which ones to eat, which ones to use as medicine, which ones would kill you, and which ones were useful for everything from cordage to insect repellent. An entire botanical library carried in living memory and passed down through story and demonstration to every child who is old enough to pay attention. The food is shared according to a simple principle that works because everyone follows it and everyone watches to make sure everyone follows it. The person who found or killed the food does not eat more than anyone else. Often, they eat less. This is not charity. It is insurance. Today you share your meat. Tomorrow, when your hunt fails and theirs succeeds, they share with you. The system works because the group is small enough for everyone to remember who is generous and who is not. Reputation is the only currency, and it buys something more valuable than food. It buys help in the form of hands that reach for you when you are sick or injured or simply unlucky. By the time the baskets are packed and the last hazelnut shells cracked between your teeth, the morning light has shifted, the shadows have shortened, the air is warming, and the day is calling you out. You stand, stretching slowly, and feel the pleasant looseness of a body that has been warm and fed and still. Most of the calories your people eat come from plants, not from hunting, not from fishing, but from the slow, reliable, unglamorous work of gathering. 60 to 80% of what keeps this camp alive walks in on the backs of gatherers, in baskets woven from willow, and lined with broad leaves, heavy with roots, and nuts, and seeds, and fruit. This is the real survival engine. The hunts are dramatic, and they matter, but gathering is what you can count on, day after day, season after season. Today, you go gathering with your aunt, your 11-year-old cousin, and your 3-year-old child, who rides on your back in a sling of soft leather. Your aunt leads. She has been gathering in this landscape for 40 years, and she carries a map of it in her mind that is more detailed than anything you could draw. She knows the oak grove 3 miles north, where the acorns are large and plentiful in autumn. She knows the marshy lowland, where cattails grow thick near a bend in the river. She knows the rocky slope to the east, where wild onions push through the gravel every spring. And she knows, by the position of the sun, and the smell of the air, and the color of the leaves, exactly when each of these places will be at its most generous. She leads you along a path that is not a path, only a way through the trees that her feet know and yours are learning. The morning light falls through the canopy in long slanting columns, catching motes of dust and pollen that drift like tiny golden planets in the still air. A spider web stretches between 2 branches, beaded with dew, trembling slightly as you pass. The air is cool and smells of leaf mold and damp bark, and the green, slightly bitter scent of new growth. Your child is warm against your back, their weight a familiar comfort, their breathing steady and slow. On your shoulder, you carry a fire-hardened digging stick, smooth and heavy, worn to a polish by years of use. In a basket at your hip are two smaller baskets nested inside one another, and a stone knife wrapped in a strip of hide. Your cousin walks slightly ahead, barefoot and sure-footed on the uneven ground, her eyes scanning the undergrowth the way your aunt has taught her to scan, looking not for any particular plant, but for patterns, the right shade of green, the right height, the way certain leaves catch the light differently when they are ready to be picked. Your aunt stops at a patch of low green plants that look unremarkable to you. She crouches, studies the soil around them, notes the tiny insects crawling at the base of the stems, and begins to dig with her stick. She works the earth carefully, prying it loose in sections, and within moments, she has pulled up a pale, knobby root the size of her fist. She brushes the dirt away and holds it up for your cousin to see. The girl leans in, studying it. Your aunt speaks softly, pointing to the root's skin, its weight, the way the flesh inside is white and firm rather than grey and soft. And your cousin nods and reaches for the digging stick to try it herself. This is how knowledge survives. Not in books, not in lectures, but in a woman kneeling in the dirt, holding a root in one hand and a story in the other. Your aunt tells the story while she works. There is a plant that looks almost exactly like this. One, she says, the leaves are the same shape, the stem is the same height, the flower is the same pale yellow, but the edible plant has 3 veins in each leaf, and the poisonous one has 5. 3 veins you eat, 5 veins you leave alone. And she does not say this as a warning, she says it as a story she was told here in this same place by her own aunt who was told it here by hers. The knowledge is tied to the land. It lives in this specific bend of the trail, near this particular stand of birch trees, in the shade of this exact slope. When you teach it here. And in this way, the landscape becomes a library, and every tree and stone and stream is a page that carries the memory of the people who have walked here before. You wade across a shallow stream, the water cold and sharp around your ankles, and on the far bank your aunt pauses to pull a handful of watercress from a slow eddy where the current has deposited silt. She eats a few leaves and hands some to your cousin, and the peppery taste is clean and bright after the earthy richness of the morning's roots. The walking itself is a kind of meditation. There is no noise except the crunch of your feet on fallen leaves, the occasional snap of a twig, the soft chatter of your cousin asking questions, and your aunt answering them. There is no urgency. The rhythm of the walk is steady, almost hypnotic, and your breathing has matched it without you choosing it. Step, step, breathe. Step, step, breathe. The child on your back has fallen into the rhythm too, their small body swaying gently with your stride. Each inhale draws in the green scent of the forest. Each exhale releases something you did not know you were holding. You notice the color of the soil changing underfoot, from dark loam to sandy clay, which tells you the water table is dropping and the season is turning. You notice the particular way the light falls through a gap in the trees, and you know from that angle that you are about halfway to the cattail marsh. Your aunt notices things you do not. She stops beside a fallen log and points to a cluster of mushrooms growing from the rotting bark. She studies them from 2 angles, leans close to smell them, then shakes her head and walks on. The wrong kind. Not dangerous, just not worth carrying. By the time you turn back, the baskets are heavy, your shoulders ache, pleasantly. Your child has fallen asleep against your back, a warm weight that shifts gently with each step. You have walked perhaps 8 miles over varied terrain, and you have come home with enough plant food to feed the camp for 2 days. It is not glamorous. There will be no songs about it tonight, no stories of triumph. But it is the most reliable, most essential work that anyone in this camp will do today. And it has been done quietly, competently, in the company of people you trust, through a landscape you know as well as you know the lines on your own hands. You return with full baskets, and the camp is warm with the smell of fire and the low sound of voices. The hunters are back too, sitting by the fire, and you can tell from the way they hold themselves that the day went well. While you are gathering, the hunters found the herd. They have been tracking these antelope for 2 days, reading the landscape the way your aunt reads her plant trails. Only their library is written in hoof prints and disturbed earth, and the faint paths that animals wear through tall grass over seasons. A single print in soft ground can tell a skilled tracker the animal's size, its speed when it passed, how recently it walked here, whether it was healthy or limping, young or old. The edges of the print reveal the soil moisture, which reveals the time. The depth reveals the weight. The spacing between prints reveals the gait, and the gait reveals whether the animal was calm or frightened, rested or exhausted. This is not guesswork. This is science, developed and refined over thousands of generations, passed from tracker to tracker through patient demonstration and years of apprenticeship. A modern detective reads a crime scene. Your people read a landscape with the same precision and considerably more experience. The hunting party is 8 people today. They carry spears with stone points napped from flint that was traded from a quarry 200 miles away, mounted on shafts of fire-straightened wood and fixed with an adhesive made from pine resin, charcoal, and powdered bone. Some carry spear throwers, a tool that uses leverage to triple the distance and speed of a thrown spear. These are sophisticated instruments, designed and refined over generations, and the people who carry them have trained with them since childhood. Humans cannot outrun an antelope, not even close. An antelope can sprint at 50 miles per hour. A human can manage perhaps 15 on a good day, over flat ground for a short burst. But humans have a gift that no other large predator on Earth possesses. Humans can sweat. Their nearly hairless bodies shed heat through evaporation with extraordinary efficiency, which means they can run at a moderate pace for hours without overheating. An antelope cannot do this. It sprints, it stops, it pants, it overheats. And while it stands there panting in the midday sun, the humans keep coming. Not fast, but steady. Always steady. And they never stop. This is persistence hunting, and it is one of the most remarkable strategies in the natural world. No claws, no fangs, no burst of overwhelming speed, just patience, just endurance, just the slow, implacable certainty that comes from knowing your body can do this longer than theirs can. A group of hunters rotates the lead position, sharing the effort, tracking the animal across open ground under the hard afternoon sun for 4, sometimes 5 hours. The lead runner pushes the pace, forcing the antelope to sprint, while the others jog behind, conserving energy, watching, waiting for their turn at the front. The antelope runs. They follow. It runs again. They follow again. The sun climbs. The heat builds, and eventually, exhausted and overheated and unable to run any further, the animal stops. The end, when it comes, is quiet and deliberate. The animal has stopped in a clearing, standing still now, its energy spent. There is a long pause before anyone moves. Not hesitation, something else, an acknowledgement. These people do not take a life casually. They understand, in a way that goes deeper than language, that this animal's death is their life and that the exchange deserves recognition. A spear is thrown, and the moment passes, and what follows is careful and respectful. The butchery that follows is expert and efficient. Your people know the anatomy of every animal they hunt with a precision that would impress a modern surgeon. Nothing is wasted. The hide is carefully removed for leather. The choicest cuts of meat are separated and wrapped. Organs are set aside. Bones will be split for marrow back at camp. What cannot be carried will be smoked here over a hastily built fire and collected later. But here is what the hunting stories rarely mention. For every successful hunt like this one, there are dozens of failures. Days of tracking that end with the herd scattering. Spears that miss. Animals that are too fast, too healthy, too far away. Hunting matters, but it was never the main source of food for most groups. That honor belongs to the gatherers and their heavy baskets, walking home quietly through the afternoon light. The tension leaves your shoulders. You notice it like a sigh you did not hear yourself make, the gradual softening that comes when effort gives way to stillness. The meat is distributed, the hide is stretched, and now the camp settles into the sound it makes every afternoon. Tap, tap, tap. The sound carries across the camp like a slow heartbeat. It is the sound of stone striking stone, and it has been the background music of human life for longer than anyone can calculate. Your aunt sits near the fire with a piece of flint in one hand and a smooth river cobble in the other. She is making a blade. This is not a simple thing. Stone knapping, the art of shaping rock into cutting tools through controlled fracturing, takes years to learn and a lifetime to master. Different stones have different properties. Flint fractures cleanly and predictably. Obsidian produces the sharpest edge of any natural material, sharper than a modern surgical scalpel, but it is brittle and shatters if struck wrong. Chert is reliable, but harder to work. Your aunt knows all of this the way a musician knows their instrument, not through study, but through feel. She is using what archaeologists call the prepared core technique. She shapes the flint carefully over the course of an hour, removing small flakes from around the edges, sculpting the core into a precise geometry that only she can see in the unworked stone. Each strike is calculated. Each flake removed changes the geometry of the core, opening new possibilities and closing others. She reads the stone the way the hunters read the tracks, seeing fracture lines and stress points that are invisible to the untrained eye. And then, when the core is exactly right, she delivers a single, well-placed strike, and a long, thin blade falls away from the core and lands in her lap. She holds it up and turns it in the firelight, checking the edge, reading the surface for any flaws that might cause it to break under pressure. It is, in its way, a small masterpiece. Nearby, someone else is hafting a blade to a wooden handle. The adhesive is remarkable. Pine resin is heated until it flows, then mixed with powdered charcoal and crushed bone to create a substance that, when cooled, holds stone to wood with startling strength. Chemistry without chemistry. Engineering without engineers. Just generations of observation and experiment, passed down through hands and eyes, and the patient repetition of a process that works. On the other side of the fire, a woman is scraping a deer hide that has been stretched on a simple wooden frame. The stone scraper moves in long, overlapping strokes, removing the last of the fat and membrane from the inner surface. When the scraping is done, the hide will be treated with a mixture of the animal's own brain and fat, a process that prevents the leather from stiffening as it dries. It is chemistry of the most elegant kind, using the animal's own biology to transform its skin into something soft, flexible, and warm. Later, she will sew it using a bone needle with a hole drilled through one end, so fine that it could almost be mistaken for a modern darning needle. The bone needle is a relatively recent invention, perhaps less than 20,000 years old, and it changed everything. Before needles, clothing was draped and tied and bound with strips of leather. After needles, it was fitted, tailored, seamed along the arms and legs so it moved with the body instead of against it, layered for warmth in winter, loosened for movement in summer, decorated with beads and dyed strips of hide that signaled who you were and where you came from. The needle made the difference between surviving a cold season and thriving in one. A boy of 8 or 9 sits nearby, watching everything. He holds a small piece of flint in his lap and a hammerstone in his hand, and every few minutes he taps at it, trying to replicate the movements he sees. His strikes are clumsy, the flakes coming off ragged and uneven, but occasionally, by luck or by the slow accumulation of observation, he produces something clean. When he does, he holds it up and examines it with the same careful attention his aunt gives to hers. No one instructs him formally. No one corrects him. He watches and he tries and he watches again. In a few years, he will be competent. In a decade, he will be skilled. In 2 decades, he may be the one the camp relies on for the finest work. This is how every skill in this camp is learned, not in a rush, but in the patient layering of days. Tap, 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 a rhythm older than language, older than song. Your own breathing has found it, slowed to match it without your choosing. The tools are sharp, the hides are drying, and the day, somehow, is only half over. The afternoon stretches ahead, warm and undemanding, and your body is already settling into its slower rhythm. This is the part of the day that belongs to no one. The gathering is done, the hunters have returned, the tools are mended, and now the camp enters a long, unhurried stretch of time that modern people would call leisure, but that your people would not call anything at all, because they have no word for the opposite. Work and rest are not separate categories here. They are different rhythms of the same day, and this afternoon, the rhythm is slow. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups consistently find that people in these communities work 4 to 6 hours a day on food-related tasks. The rest of the time is spent resting, socializing, making and repairing tools, caring for children, and simply being present with one another. This is not laziness, this is maintenance. Bodies need rest the way tools need sharpening. Minds need quiet the way fires need air. And in a world without screens, without schedules, without the constant low-frequency hum of obligation that fills a modern life, that quiet feels not empty, but full. The children are playing. You can hear them somewhere beyond the tree line, shouting and laughing, running through some game whose rules change every few minutes and whose only purpose is the sheer joy of movement. They are rehearsing. Everything they do in play, they will do in earnest, as adults. The running builds the endurance that will carry them through a persistence hunt. The wrestling teaches them where their body ends and another begins. The games of hide and seek sharpen the same observation skills they will use to read a landscape for food and danger. But they do not know any of this. They are simply playing, and the sound of it drifts through the camp like a kind of weather, pleasant and unremarkable and alive. You watch them from the shade, where you are lying on your side in the grass, your head resting on your arm, your eyes half closed. A warm breeze moves through the camp, carrying the smell of dry grass and sun-heated stone. The warmth presses gently against your skin, and your body sinks a little deeper into the grass. Your eyelids are heavy, and that is all right. Let them be heavy. An ant is making its way along a blade of grass near your face, and you watch it with the idle attention of someone who has nowhere to be. The world does not need you to do anything right now. As the afternoon deepens, someone begins to play. A bone flute, no longer than a handspan, carved from the hollow wingbone of a large bird. The holes are carefully spaced to produce notes that fall into recognizable patterns, intervals that any modern musician would identify as a scale. This instrument, or one very like it, is more than 40,000 years old. Music is not a luxury that humans invented after they had solved the problem of survival. Music came with them, or very nearly. It is as old as the shelters, and the stone tools, and the fire. The sound is thin and clear, like water over smooth stones. It hangs in the evening air for a moment, a single clear note, and then another, and then a melody that seems to have no beginning and no end. Just a gentle rising and falling that matches the light on the horizon. Someone begins to clap a rhythm, slow and steady. Someone else taps a stick against a flat rock. A woman begins to hum, and her hum finds the melody and wraps around it. And then, as naturally as birds lifting from a field, people begin to move. Not a performance, not a ceremony, just bodies responding to rhythm the way they have always responded to rhythm, the way your body is responding now. Even as you listen to this, a slight loosening, a gentle sway, something deep and wordless and very old, recognizing something it has always known. Your breathing has found the rhythm too, slow, steady, easy. The dancing is not separate from the rest of the evening. It grows out of it the way the music grew out of the silence. And when it ends, it will dissolve back into conversation and stillness without any clear boundary between them. Later, when the dancing has softened to stillness and the fire has been built up again, an old woman begins to talk. She does not announce that she is going to tell a story. She simply begins, and the camp quiets around her the way water quiets when the wind drops. She speaks about a journey her grandmother made long ago to a place where the river bends twice and the cliff face turns red in the evening light. She speaks about what her grandmother found there, what plants grew in the shadow of that cliff, what animals came to drink at that bend in the river, and what happened one winter when the water rose higher than anyone had seen it rise before. And woven through the story, carried by it, the way a river carries leaves, are the things the group needs to know. Where to find water in a dry season, which paths to avoid after heavy rain, what the color of certain berries means, and when those berries are safe and when they are not. How far to go before turning back if the clouds build up from the west. This is memory technology. Before writing, before records of any kind, stories were the medium in which critical survival information was stored and transmitted. The maps were stories. The medical knowledge was stories. The history of the group and its decisions and its mistakes was all stories, held in living minds and passed from one generation to the next around fires exactly like this one. The old woman telling this story is a library. When she dies, which may be years from now, or maybe tomorrow, everything she carries will survive only in the minds of those who listened. And so they listen carefully, and the fire crackles, and the evening air cools against their skin, and the story goes on. Your breathing has slowed without you noticing, each breath a little longer, a little deeper than the one before. The afternoon light has gone amber and heavy, and the shadows have grown long, and you have let them because there is nowhere you need to be. The light is changing. That particular shift from warm gold to deep amber that happens in the hour before sunset, and that your body recognizes even before your eyes do. Tasks are winding down. People are moving inward, back toward the fire, the way they do every evening, drawn not by any signal, but by something older than signals. The fire is a boundary. Everything inside its light is safe. You feel it in your body, the gathering inward, the softening of muscles as the circle of warmth closes around you. The evening meal is the largest and most social of the day. Meat from the hunt is roasted on sticks, held over the flames, the fat dripping and hissing in the coals. Roots dug up this morning are buried in the hot ashes to bake. Bones are split lengthwise and the marrow scooped out, rich and warm and almost sweet. People eat and talk and pass food to one another, and the giving of food is its own kind of conversation, a language of generosity that everyone reads fluently. The person who gives freely is the person who will be helped when they need it. The person who hoards is noted gently and remembered. The firelight makes the faces around you warm and familiar. You have known every one of these faces since the day you were born. You know how each person laughs, and who sleeps lightly, and who sleeps like stone, and whose voice carries farthest when there is danger. In a band of 30 people, there are no strangers and no acquaintances. There are only the people you love and the people you sometimes find difficult, and even the difficult ones you love because they are yours and you are theirs, and there is no leaving and no being left and no loneliness. The children are quieter now, fed and drowsy, leaning against adults or curled in laps. A small boy has fallen asleep with his head on his mother's thigh, one hand still loosely gripping a strip of meat he did not finish. The conversation has shifted from the practical matters of the day, where the herd was moving, which trails were washed out, who noticed fresh bear tracks near the river, to something softer, plans for tomorrow, but loosely held. Memories of other evenings like this. 1. A joke that makes 3 people laugh and 2 people groan. The low, easy murmur of people who know one another completely and who have nowhere else to be. Someone mentions the Painted Cave. It is a day's walk from here, deep in the hillside, a place your people visit in certain seasons when the reasons feel right. You have been there. You remember the torchlight on the stone, the way the flames made the animals seem to move. Horses running, bison turning, a mammoth lifting its trunk as the shadows shifted across the curved rock. Whoever painted them understood something about the stone itself, used its ridges and hollows to give the animals weight and form. Deep underground, in the silence and the dark, with only the fire and the painted walls and the sound of your own breathing, the boundary between the world you know and something older and stranger grew very thin. You did not understand it then, and you do not understand it now, but you remember the feeling, and it is enough. As the light fades, the work of settling in begins. You clear a few stones from your sleeping place and lay down a thick layer of dried grass and soft reeds, packing it tight so it holds its shape through the night. Over this, you spread an animal's skin, first side up, and then another skin to pull over yourself. The bed is simple and surprisingly comfortable. The layers of grass and hide holding your body heat close. It smells of grass and smoke and the faint musk of the leather. And these smells are the smell of safety, of home, of every night you have ever slept here. The sleeping arrangements follow a map that everyone understands. Parents sleep near their children. Elders are placed where they can be reached easily in the night. Couples sleep close, their warmth shared under a single hide. The arrangement is not planned. It simply happens the same way every night because everyone knows where they belong. And knowing where you belong is its own kind of rest, a quiet releasing of something you did not know you were still holding. Your body sinks into the grass, and the grass sinks into the earth, and the earth holds you the way it has held every person who has ever slept here. Your shoulders release a tension you did not know they were carrying. Your jaw softens. Your hands, which have been gripping and carrying and working all day, finally open and rest. Your breathing slows. Each exhale carries a little more of the day away, a little more weight dissolving into the warmth beneath you. At the edge of the firelight, just where the orange glow fades into darkness, a shape is curled on the ground. Not quite a dog and not quite a wolf, but something in between. Something that began generations ago when a bolder, calmer wolf started lingering near the camp. They sleep at the boundary, their ears tuned to sounds that human ears would miss, and they growl when something moves in the dark, an early warning that lets the rest of the camp sleep deeper, knowing that the perimeter is watched. The night sounds begin to layer, one on top of another, building a kind of music that has no composer and no audience, only participants. The crack and settle of the fire as it burns down, its embers shifting and collapsing into new configurations of heat. The breathing of the people around you, each rhythm slightly different, overlapping and weaving together until the individual breaths dissolve into a single, collective sound, like waves on a distant shore. The rustle of a child turning in their sleep, burrowing deeper between two warm bodies, a murmured word from someone who is talking in their dreams. Outside, beyond the firelight, the sounds of the night world, insects, an unbroken chorus that rises and falls with a rhythm of its own. A distant owl, calling twice and then waiting, calling twice and then waiting, the soft rush of wind through the trees, and further still, far enough away to be more sound than threat, the call of a hyena. You know the sound. It is familiar and distant and old beyond imagining. You do not fear it. You note it the way you note the wind direction, and you let it pass. Each sound settles into the next, and the distance between them grows, and the silence between them grows softer. Your body is heavy now, heavy and warm, and the heaviness is not something to fight, it is something to fall into. Someone is awake. Someone is always awake, sitting near the fire, keeping the vigil that keeps everyone safe. Tonight, it is the young man who slept through the afternoon, rested and alert now, his eyes adjusted to the darkness beyond the fire's reach. You do not need to know who it is. You only need to know that they are there, and they are. The oldest comfort in the world. Someone is watching, so you do not have to. Someone is listening, so you can stop listening. Someone is awake, so you can let the waking go. Your eyes are heavy. That is all right. They have been heavy for 40,000 years. The fire has burned down to coals. The conversations have thinned to whispers. And the whispers have thinned to silence. And the silence is not empty, but full. Full of breathing, full of warmth, full of the slow, measured rhythm of your own breath, rising and falling like something that belongs to the night rather than to you. Full of the particular peace that comes from a day lived simply and entirely, in the company of people who know you, in a place that knows you. under a sky that has not changed. You lived well today. You woke without rushing. You ate food that was gathered and shared, and you shared it freely, and it was enough. You walked through a landscape that your people have known for generations, and you learned something new about it, and you taught something too. You made something with your hands, something useful, something that will still be useful tomorrow. You listened to music that no one composed and stories that no one wrote down, and both of them will be here again the next time the fire is lit. You watched the fire, and now the fire is watching over you. We have built extraordinary things since this day. We have built cities and libraries and telescopes and machines that can carry a human voice across the world in a fraction of a second. But we built those things with the same hands that once cracked hazelnuts by the fire, with the same minds that once tracked antelope across open ground, with the same deep, unshakable need for community and purpose and rest that your people felt on this night, 40,000 years ago, and that you can feel now if you are quiet enough to listen for it. We have built tools to free our time and then filled that time back up with noise. But the need beneath the noise has not changed. The need for warmth, for company, for the sound of someone breathing beside you in the dark, the need for a fire that someone tends, the need for a day that does not demand more of you than you can give. If you would like more nights like this, one more slow hours spent in the deep past, more fires to sit beside while the rest of the world sleeps, subscribing to the Sleepy Historian is the simplest way to make sure we find each other again. There will always be another night, another ancient world to walk through, another quiet place where the only clock is the sun. And if you are still awake enough, now or in the morning, I would love to hear where you are listening from tonight. Knowing that someone in Buenos Aires and someone in Edinburgh and someone on the far side of the Pacific are all settling into the same stillness at the same late hour. That is a kind of warmth worth keeping. But that is for later. Right now, there is nothing left to do except rest. That day is still here. It is the oldest day, and it is ending now the way it has always ended. With embers, with stillness, with the slow, easy fall into sleep that your body has been practicing since before the first stone was shaped into a tool. You do not need to try to sleep. You do not need to count anything or clear your mind or follow any technique. Your body knows how to do this. It has always known. Let go of the day the way the fire lets go of its heat, slowly, without effort, one ember at a time. The moon is up, the same moon that lit this shelter 40,000 years ago, the same stars, turning in the same slow wheel across the same dark sky, the same wind, soft and unhurried, carrying the same scent of earth and grass and distance, the same quiet. Your jaw has softened, your shoulders have dropped, your hands are open and still. The hunt can wait until morning. Everything can wait until morning.